Hello Ignition Radio listeners and welcome to Airtime of the Geek. It's Monday and it's 1pm GMT if you're listening live via our website or via TuneIn. If you're listening to the 1am repeat, it's 5pm Pacific, 7pm Central, 8pm Eastern. If you're catching up on YouTube, then please like and subscribe to this video and our channel. Comments, queries, suggestions, you can follow me on Twitter, it's at Airtime Geek, or Instagram is at Airtime of the Geek. You can email me, it's paulab@ignitionradio.co.uk. You can also take a look at geeky art I upload to DeviantArt. My username there is Airtime Geek. And don't forget to like the Facebook page, it's facebook.com/airtimeofthegeek. Or you can call in the studio, the number's 01642 645 827. It's the 23rd of May, which means Game of Thrones Season 6, Episode 5 aired last night. We've reached the halfway point and we're going to be recapping it later in the show. We're skipping over the Geek News this week, partly because there's not much to report on since Geek News is starting to slow down as Comic-Con draws ever closer and everyone tends to save the best news for them. And partly because I went to see X-Men last week and we've got a double review to get through. So for this week's top 10, we're going to be counting down my top 10 superhero TV shows. Of course, as usual, we'll always start with number 10 because it's more fun for me to do it in reverse order. And number 10 is Batman, the 1960s Adam West Batman. This camp, colourful, comedic adaptation of the titular comic book character, produced for ABC from 1966 to 1968, featured Batman played by Adam West and Robin played by Burt Ward, foiling daffy and innocuous criminals via detective work and slow fist fights which were punctuated by large comic-style pow, baff and zonks. Producer William Dozier and head writer Lorenzo Semple Jr. were assigned to create a Batman TV series, and not being fans of comics, they hit on the idea of lampshading and parodying the over-the-top tropes of comics and the square humourless of superheroes. The result was an instant smash hit. In 1966 it appealed to both kids and adults. Children tuned in for the superhero adventures and adults caught the jokes and satirical humour. With its intentionally absurd writing, particularly Batman's array of gadgets which seemed large enough to cater for any given situation, the legendary shark-repellent bat spray comes to mind, and shonky production values, this was more like a televised pantomime than anything resembling portrayals of superheroes in modern-day media. The series managed to become something of a cultural icon, but it is also partly responsible for the generation's public dim view of comic book writing and comics in general today, as even at the time comic book writing was taken far more seriously. For most of its run, Batman aired twice a week on successive weeknights, which was unusual at the time. The episodes were two-parters and a cliffhanger punctuated at the end of the first episode, and the narrator iconically told the audience to tune in tomorrow, same bad time, same bad channel. The series switched to airing once a week in the final season. Batman the movie was an original theatrical feature film based on the series and released in 1966. Among other things, the movie's larger budget provided the dynamic duo with some additional vehicles that stuck around for the remainder of the TV series by recycling footage from the film: the Batboard, the Batcopter and the Batcycle. The series still tends to be polarising. Many enjoy it for its sheer farce and surrealism, or for its nostalgia value, but at the same time, many modern Batman fans consider this Batman to be the opposite of the Batman they know and love. Many comic fans also consider the show to be responsible for tainting an entire medium in the eyes of the general public. To this day, mainstream news stories about comic books are likely to have headlines like "Pow, Zap, Wham, comic books aren't just for kids anymore." The series is sometimes blamed for causing Batman's comic line to adopt a campier tone as well, but in truth the main difference between this series and the new look Batman comics that immediately preceded it was that the TV show was intentionally funny. The series did play a key role in the continuing existence of the Bat franchise, however. Comic sales had been in serious decline, but the series provided a great deal of publicity, which led to a much needed sales boost in Batman comics. In addition, the series was highly influential. Cesar Romero, Frank Gershwin, Burgess Meredith would be the template for future Jokers, Riddlers and Penguins. The show's legacy continued long after its cancellation. Almost a decade later, Adam West and Burt Ward would reprise their roles on The New Adventures of Batman, a Film Nation animated series which completed the Hanna-Barbera's Super Friends. West would eventually wind up voicing Batman on the last two Superpowers branded series of Super Friends. Robin continued to play by his longtime Super Friends voice actor, Casey Kasem. The show's style also influenced Superman the movie, the first ever big budget of superhero film. West and Ward would play Batman in live action one final time, joined by Frank Gorshin as the Riddler in the 1979 TV Legends of the Superhero specials. In the early 2000s, West and Ward, again joined by Gershwin, portrayed cartoon versions of themselves in the CBS movie Return to the Batcave, The Misadventures of Adam and Bert, consisting of a modern-day plot to find the stolen Batmobile mixed with flashbacks to the events behind the scenes of filming in the 60s. In 2015, Ward revealed he and West would be returning for a full-length animated movie for the series' 50th anniversary in 2016. Number 9 is Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman. A live-action incarnation of the Superman mythos that aired from 93 to 97 and one of the first superhero series aimed at women as much as men. Lois and Clark continued the trend of post-crisis Superman stories in identifying Clark as the real personality with Superman as the role he puts on and having the support of his still-living foster parents. Lois and Clark slotted into a long line of moonlighting imitators, mixing a will-they, won't-they romance with a few postmodern aspirations. Clark spent as much time chasing clues and mixing with his weird co-workers as he did battling evil as his caped persona, was a frequent topic of Seinfeldian conversation. This breezy approach was reflected in the young, attractive central cast. Former 91210 heartthrob Dean Cain as Clark Kent/Superman, brooding leading man, John Shear as Lex Luthor, and Terry Hatcher in her career-defining role as Lois Lane. The show suffered to an extent from a known problem with live-action superhero shows, restraints on budget and their effects on the story. Superman rarely fought with someone who was a physical match for him, with most villains either being secretive like Luthor or, much like earlier George Reeves series, resorting to kidnapping innocents. Occasionally, Superman's power levels were lessened to add drama, but the consistency of those vulnerabilities was spotty at best. Making up for these were the engaging Daily Planet cast, a fair amount of wit and most notably the phenomenal chemistry between Cain and Hatcher. Was simply known as The New Adventures of Superman, no direct relation to all the older animated series in countries outside of the US due to executives believing non-American viewers wouldn't understand the pun on the 19th century American explorers Lewis and Clark. Number 8 is the mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the first incarnation of the Power Rangers and the one that non-fans will remember as being all over the place in the mid-1990s. The show uses action footage from 3 Super Sentai shows: Kairo Centro Zai Ranger, Season 1 and onwards, Gosei Sentai Dai Ranger, Season 2 Monsters, Zords and the White Ranger's costume, and Ninja Sentai Kaku Ranger, most of Season 3. The costumes are only used for the Mighty Morphin Alien Rangers. Lasted a strong 3 seasons and 1 movie before Saban decided it would be better to adapt the Sentai formula and start changing costumes every year. Although unlike the Sentai, various series exist in the same continuity. The Rangers' uniforms were the only consistent thing throughout this incarnation, and that's what would have made the change to Zeo so major. Long ago, Zordon sealed the evil Rita Repulsa away in a space dumpster on a passing asteroid, a point leaving fans confused because the asteroid was never specified. But some careless astronauts accidentally freed her. Taking up residence on the moon, she declared war on Earth. Unable to fight herself due to being trapped in a time warp, he asks his assistant, Alpha 5, to summon 5 teenagers with attitude: Jason Lee Scott, Zach Taylor, Kimberly Ann Hart, Billy Cranston and Trini Kwan in order to stop Rita. He then gave them power coins, allowing them to morph into the rainbow-coloured, dinosaur-inspired superheroes and proceed to teach lessons of many kinds. Ranger life gets a bit more interesting with the introduction of the villain-turned-hero Green Ranger, the new kid in school, Tommy Oliver, which shakes up the character dynamics and introduces a new Zord, shaking up the mech battles. The season was supposed to end after 40 episodes with a grand finale, Doomsday, but it was so popular they commissioned additional Thai-produced fight footage to continue the season. It was largely at this point where the series started making plans for long-term commitments. Tommy had his powers drained from him before Doomsday, an adapted storyline in the Sentai where the Green Ranger died. Afterwards, he gets his powers back with restrictions in an effort to further the popularity of the character. The action footage made some efforts to reflect the plot and characterizations of Power Rangers, such as Blue Ranger's tech savviness and the romantic relationship between Green and Pink, and it's referenced as Zayu 2 footage in fan circles. The second season introduced Rita's superior, Lord Zed, who decided he'd have enough of her failures and banishes her. The Rangers learn that Zed is more powerful and they need to upgrade their Zords into the mythology-themed Thunder Zords as a way to justify using Die Ranger Zord footage instead of continuing to pay for more original footage. It brings up the final end of the Green Ranger's powers, only later to introduce the White Ranger. It also features the first Ranger replacements, as the three Rangers were chose to go on a peace conference, while in reality the actors had demanded more money. Rita comes back mid-season and slips Zed a love potion, so they get married. Then the in-laws start showing up in the third season. The new enemies gather around Rita and Zed prove to be too much for the Rangers, and their power coins are destroyed. Desperate, they go off and search for the legendary creator of the coins, an aloof sage named Ninja, who forges them new power coins based on modern creatures and the art of ninjutsu. Came to an end when Rita's father, Master Vile, arrived and reversed time, de-aging the teens. This forced Zordon to summon a stand-in of Mighty Morphin Alien Rangers, the first time we are informed of other Ranger teams, for about 10 episodes while the Earth Rangers travelled through time and space to find the pieces of the Zeo Crystal and remove them to the proper time frame. Then soon the Earth Rangers returned to normal. The command centre was blown up, and this was the jumping off point for the new season of Power Rangers Zeo. While the following 3 seasons, Power Rangers Zeo, Turbo and In Space, featured a rotating of big bads and Rangers themselves, Power Rangers In Space provides a final for people called the Zordon era, after Power Rangers followed the Super Sentai standalone season standalone team format. But unlike Super Sentai, it's all in one continuity. In 1995, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the movie, was released, given a big budget treatment and deliberately doesn't fit into the continuity of the series. The events of the film are repeated and replaced in the third season. It was the first time that Zordon's homeworld of Eltar was mentioned, which later became canon with the series. In the grand scheme of the franchise, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers is certainly the most iconic of the series, but it had some quirks that were ironed out or improved in later series. A continuity reboot movie produced by Lionsgate and written by Ashley Miller and Zach Stentz of X-Men First Class is set for 2017. From the looks of the costumes, it's probably going to be a bit crap, but it's more Power Rangers. Number 7 is The Flash. The Flash was a 1990 live-action TV series based on the comic book character of the same name, starring John Wesley Shipp in the title role. Central City police scientist Barry Allen is caught in a freak lab accident involving a bolt of lightning and several random chemicals on a shelf. The bizarre combination alters his body chemistry, allowing him to move at incredible super speed. Shortly afterwards, his older brother Jay is murdered by a notorious gang leader and ex-cop, Nicholas Pike, prompting Barry to seek the aid of Star Lab's assistant, Dr. Tina McGee, in order to bring Pike and his gang to justice. To that end, Barry dons an experimental high-pressure diving suit modified with lightning bolt designs and sets out on a one-man war with Pike, eventually on crime in Central City as a whole. The series lasted for only a season, 22 episodes in all, and was eventually cancelled due to poor scheduling by CBS. The Gulf War was also a factor. It was produced by Warner Brothers in association with Petfly Productions. A second TV series based on The Flash started in 2014 and contains several homages to the show, such as Shipp returning as Barry Allen's father, Amanda Pays and Mark Hamill reprising their roles as Tina McGee and the villainous Trickster respectively, in addition to a lot of minor roles being played by original cast members. It was eventually confirmed that this series takes place in an alternate universe to the newer one's own, and the Flash sees a glimpse of the universe while travelling through dimensions in a Season 2 episode. Number 6 on our countdown is Arrow. Arrow is a television series from the CW based on the DC Comics character the Green Arrow. Started airing in 2012 and is currently in its 4th season. A more realistic and grounded adaptation of DC's Green Arrow comics, it shows the beginning of the Arrowverse. After a violent shipwreck, billionaire playboy Oliver Queen, played by Stephen Amell, was missing and presumed dead for 5 years before being discovered alive on a remote island in the Pacific. When he returns home to Starling City, his devoted mother Moira, beloved sister Thea and best friend Tommy welcome him home, but they sense Oliver has been changed by his ordeal on the island. Oliver keeps quiet about the man he's become, and he desperately wants to make amends for the actions that he took as an arrogant, unfaithful playboy. Most particularly, he seeks reconciliation with former girlfriend Laurel Lance, which is a complicated affair as he was cheating on her with her sister Sarah, who Oliver watched die in the shipwreck of the Queen's Gambit. As Oliver plays the role of wealthy, carefree, careless philanderer he used to be, he secretly creates the persona of the Hood, a vigilante to right the wrongs of his family, fight the ills of society and restore Starling City to its former glory. However, Laurel's father, Detective Quentin Lance, is determined to arrest the vigilante operating in his city. His mission is flanked by John Diggle, his devoted chauffeur/bodyguard, Felicity Smoke, a Queen Consolidated IT specialist, and Roy Harper, a street kid who needed guidance while carefully concealing a secret identity he turns to under cover of darkness. Flashbacks to the island reveal that Oliver was far from alone during those 5 years, dealing with paramilitary forces, mad scientists, and being trained by Slade Wilson to be the vigilante he is today. In the present day, Oliver finds himself taking on an organisation far more dangerous than he anticipated, headed by Malcolm Merlin. Meanwhile, Oliver's own mother Moira knows much more about the deadly shipwreck than she has let on, and she is more ruthless than he could ever imagine. The show follows the comics in broad strokes, playing the line between staying faithful to the source and keeping the audience surprised. Those unfamiliar with the comics will miss some mythology gags and references to important characters in the DCU, but the series enjoys employing red herrings to keep even comic fans on their toes. The show's goal was to depict an evolving character who to become more closer or further from their comic origins, but through character development may eventually grow into classical characters. Oliver started his mission as a ruthless vigilante, killing enemies without hesitation, but has a change of heart when he sees the negative effects it has on the city, his allies, his friends and family. Despite some hesitation regarding the serious note, the show ended up highly acclaimed for the cinematic presentation and having a strong cast. It brought its high ratings for the CW and was a success that led to the creation of the televised shared universe known as the Arrowverse. Barry Allen, played by Grant Gustin, was introduced in a 2-part episode in the second season and showed the event that would eventually turn him into The Flash. At the very end of the episode, his spin-off show, The Flash, premiered alongside the Arrow's third season. Its success would expand the universe again with an animated series on the CW focusing on Vixen, set in the same continuity, and later followed a live-action crossover with the same voice artist. Soon after, a third spin-off was created, Legends of Tomorrow, following some other DC characters introduced between the two shows in a team-up to combat unique threats, starring Brandon Routh as Roy Palmer, the Atom, and Katie Lois as Sarah Lance / the Canary, among others. Following the cancellation of Constantine in the 4th season, Matt Ryan showed up representing the titular character, retroactively incorporating that show into their shared universe. Comments, queries, suggestions, you can follow me on Twitter at Airtime Geek. Instagram is at Airtime of Geek. You can email me, it's paulaB@ignitionradio.co.uk. Take a look at geeky art I upload, deviant art, the username there's Airtime Geek. Don't forget to like the Facebook page, it's facebook.com/Airtime of Geek. Or you can call me on the studio, the number's 01642 645 827. Continuing the countdown of the top 10 superhero TV shows, it's number 5, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., or Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., is a TV series set in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, focusing on the organisation of S.H.I.E.L.D., taking place after the Adventures and Iron Man 3 chronologically. Premiered in September 2013 on ABC and was created and executive produced by Joss Whedon, Jed Whedon and Marissa Tangshora. Joss Whedon also directed the pilot. It stars Ming-Na Wen, Elizabeth Henstridge, Ian DeCarstaker, Brett Dalton, Chloe Bennett and Clark Gregg as a very much alive Agent Phil Coulson, with later additions of Adrian Palicki, Nick Blood, Henry Simmons and Luke Mitchell joining the main cast after its inaugural season. The series begins with agents investigating and containing various supernatural high-tech objects and individuals to keep them safe from the public. During the Battle of New York, complications of its aftermath blew the lid off their previous level of secrecy. The status quo was upended midway through the first season when S.H.I.E.L.D. was dissolved after it was compromised by terrorist group Hydra following the events of Captain America Winter Soldier. The series now follows Coulson as his team struggles to rebuild the organisation from its remaining loyal elements, even as they're being hunted by the US Army, Hydra and other hostile forces of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. While previous MCU films focused on Marvel Comics characters who already existed in the comics themselves, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. focuses primarily on characters original to the MCU, beyond S.H.I.E.L.D. itself originating from the comics, of course. Though there have been an increasing number of crossovers with comic and MCU characters, and several episodes have been direct follow-ups to the films. This reciprocates both ways, with events in the series simultaneously impacting the rest of the MCU, with a comic book series and Marvel 616 of the team ran from December 2014 to November 2015. A second one, bearing the titles of the show, will launch as part of the all-new, all-different Marvel initiative in 2016. A spin-off involving Lance Hunter and Mockingbird titled Marvel Most Wanted was announced in April 2015 and later seemingly put on the back burner in favour of renewing Agents for a third season and Agent Carter for a second season. However, it was announced that even though a pilot had been ordered, it would not be picked up. Agent Carter also being cancelled. Number 4 is Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Into every generation a Slayer is born, one girl in all the world, a chosen one. She alone will wield the strength and skill to fight the vampires, demons and the forces of darkness, to stop their spread of evil and swell their numbers. She is the Slayer. In 1992, Joss Whedon wrote a somewhat decent, if largely forgotten film about a bog-standard trope, the fragile and doomed blonde cheerleader attacked by monsters in a dark alley. With a postmodern twist, the blonde cheerleader is the Slayer, a powerful warrior that monsters are afraid of meeting in dark alleys. Since Whedon, a mere writer, lacked creative control over his work, he viewed the actual film as a disappointment, though still entertaining. Not wanting the character and overall concept to go to waste, and given the opportunity to revisit it as a television series, he wasted no time in saying yes. In 1997, the fledgling WB network raised Buffy from the dead with an abbreviated first season. The pilot treats the motion picture as originally scripted, not the film that resulted, as canon. Buffy learns that she is from the most recent line of warrior women picked by fate to balance the fight against the forces of darkness, and in pitched battle sets the school gym on fire to kill the vampires inside. She can't fully explain this to authorities, making her a social pariah. Hoping to elude her Slayer responsibilities, she and her mother moved to Sunnydale, a sleepy town in Southern California. In spite of that, she learns Sunnydale is sitting on top of a hellmouth, as well as an evil that attracts all types of demons. She is assigned a watcher from the ancient conspiracy dedicated to finding and training Slayers. Forming a tight-knit group of friends, Buffy battles Hellspawn whilst juggling her double life as a carefree schoolgirl. The last part is easier than it sounds, as Sunnydale adults are too wrapped up in their lawn care and denial to acknowledge the evil brewing right under their feet. Given that demons are on Buffy are walking metaphors for the existing evils, reptilian authority figures, suddenly soulless boyfriends and so on, the B-horror trappings take on entirely new meaning, usually with a sly feminist wink inserted. The show didn't catch on in its first season, but did garner enough critical acclaim to attract viewers by year 2. However, Buffy and Angel were not inexpensive shows to produce, and neither were expected to grow beyond their cult demographic. Although the WB attempted to shove Buffy off the air in 2001, it was picked up by UPN for season 6 and 7. The jump was heralded by Buffy's literal death and resurrection, along with ratings-grabbing ad campaign. The show pioneered half-arc seasons, and with singular villain behind that year's events, it signposted a few major plot development months and even years in advance. People, more surprisingly, the central cast grew like kudzu, even with Walk-On Walls getting a dose of character development much later on, just in time for Joss to kill them off, alas. Nobody can deny or ignore the influence of Buffy on TV shows that followed, both within and outside the genre. Russell T Davies had at least one eye on the show when he revived Doctor Who. The series had become one of the most trope, overdosed and lampshaded in existence. Buffy remains Joss Whedon's mothership series, with numerous tie-in novels, merchandise, video games and spin-off offing. Though plans for a Spike and Odd Giles TV show remain in development hell, in 2001 just even tried shopping around an animated series based on the show, but Nutmegs fell for it when it wasn't suitable for small kids. In 1999, Joss and co-producer David Wedgwock convinced a spin-off starring Buffy's vampiric love interest, Angel, the He-Man to Buffy's She-Ra, if you will. While Buffy focused on adolescent woe, Angel tried to revolve the stress-out 20-something thankless jobs, trying to hold onto their youthful ideals. Angel eventually ended the only way it could, having the gang sold out and become corporate-sponsored superheroes, much to the disgust of Buffy and her allies, who disavowed them. Crossovers and cross-references between the two shows persisted even after Buffy ended in 2003. 2007, Buffy started up again in comic form. Produced by Joss Whedon, it encompasses 3 seasons of TV time so far. In 2011, the mainline series branched off into an Angel and Faith, which is London-based. I have to say, if you do actually really love Buffy and want to read the comics, do so, but quit after season 8, because after that it gets weird. Entering the top 3 now, number 3 is Supergirl. Based on Supergirl by DC Comics, this television series starring Melissa Benoist as the titular hero. It was developed and executive produced by Greg Berlanti, Ali Adler and Andrew Kreisberg. The show premiered in October 2015 on CBS, though the pilot was leaked in May. The series focuses on Kara Zor-El, a Kryptonian who escaped from her dying planet as a teen, sent after her infant cousin Kal-El to take care of him. However, her ship was knocked off course into the Phantom Zone, where time stands still. And by the time she made it to Earth, Kal-El was already grown up. She was adopted by the Danvers family and grew to adulthood alongside their daughter Alex. 12 years after coming to Earth, Kara decides to use her powers to become a hero like her cousin. Other characters include Cat Grant, the head of a media conglomerate Catco, whom Kara works for in her civilian guise, James Olsen, an art director for Catco, Wynne Schott, a programmer for Catco and Kara's neighbour, and Henk Hanshaw, the director of the Department of Extranormal Operations, and a secret government agency where Alex also works. Despite it being from the same creators, the show was originally separate from the Arrowverse, with it being on a different network, making crossovers tricky. Plus, Superman being a well-established hero would make it hard to believe no one in the Arrowverse ever brought him up before. Though the crew hinted that they might be merged later if they could get on CBS, which might not be so hard considering they own half of the CW. A crossover was eventually confirmed, with Grant Gustin's Flash appearing in the 28th of March 2016 in an episode of Supergirl, albeit not making it part of the Prime Arrowverse. A February 2016 episode of The Flash confirmed Supergirl wasn't part of the same universe, but part of its larger multiverse. Since Supergirl's been picked up for its 2nd season and will be moving to the CW, chances are that Supergirl will be folded into the main Arrowverse. So number 2 on our continued countdown is Agent Carter. Agent Carter was a television series that started in 2015, set in the MCU, starring Hayley Atwell as Peggy Carter, a British officer of the Strategic Scientific Reserve, co-founder of S.H.I.E.L.D., who was romantically involved with Steve Rogers during Captain America: The First Avenger. Supporting cast includes Dominic Cooper as Howard Stark, reprising his role from the movies, James Darcy as Edwin Jarvis, Chad Michael Murray, and Dollhouse alum Enver, do you know what? Can't pronounce his last name. The guy who played Victor in Dollhouse. He's in it as well. It's 1946, a year after the end of World War II and the disappearance of Captain America. Thousands of trained men and women have come home from the fighting, looking for new plans to use their skills. One of them is Peggy. Still despondent after the loss of Steve and hampered from getting a better job by misogyny of the times, but in between tedious office work for the SSR, Peggy is contacted by her old friend Howard Stark, eventual father of Tony Stark, who needs her help in clearing his name and finding whoever is stealing his restricted weapons. Accompanied by his butler Edwin Jarvis, Peggy puts her skills to the test, beating up bad guys and laying the foundation for S.H.I.E.L.D. itself. In Season 2, the setting shifts to 1947 Southern California, with Peggy uncovering a new conspiracy whilst working for the Los Angeles branch of SSR. Darcy as Jarvis, Cooper as Stark return, along with new cast members Wynne Everett and as Whitney Frost, and Lot Verbeek as Anna Jarvis, and Reggie Austin as Jason Wilkes. The series was initially tested out with a Marvel one-shot of the same name, released with the Iron Man 3 Blu-ray in the autumn of 2013. Tragically, the season was recently cancelled, which, considering that season 2 ended on a cliffhanger, is really, really annoying. So my number one choice for the top 10 superhero TV shows is The Flash, the new series. The Flash started in 2014 and on the CW based of the DC comic superhero of the same name, a spin-off of Arrow and the second show in the Arrowverse, starring Grant Gustin as Barry Allen and DC's Jeff Johns as executive producer. Barry Allen, a young forensic investigator in Central City, is struck by lightning in a storm moments after the new Stars Labs particle accelerator explodes and releases an unknown energy into the area. Waking up from a coma 9 months later, Barry discovers he now has the ability to move at superhuman speeds. Aided by the remaining Star Labs crew, Barry dons a costume and uses his power for good, but the particle accelerator accident created other metahumans who may not share his morals. As the Flash, Barry is monitored by Dr. Harrison Wells, played by Tom Cavanagh, and his team. Barry balances his life with his day-to-day job for the police, where his foster father, Joe West, is a detective. He also harbours an unrequited love for Joe's daughter, his childhood friend Iris, who is dating Joe's partner, Eddie Thorne. Barry also seeks to solve the mystery of his mother's death when he was a child, for which his father was unjustly jailed after they witnessed a yellow blur of a man do the deed, a man who might have the same power as him. Barry debuted in season 2 of episode Arrow, The Scientist and Three Ghosts, as a visiting CSI tech, showing the event that gave him powers following his return to Central City. Being well received, The Flash was given the go-ahead as a series. Barry's other Starlab teammates, Dr. Caitlin Snow and Cisco Ramon, were introduced in a later season 2 episode of Arrow as a lead into the pilot episode, and it shows the parent show also shares the continuity with Vixen, made in 2015, the animated web series on CW Seed. Legend of Tomorrow also links in using villains from The Flash of Captain Cold and Heatwave. It is one of 3 live-action DC comic shows to premiere in 2014, along with Fox's Gotham and NBC's Constantine. Being different networks, they're all independent of each other, though Constantine was absorbed into the Arrowverse after it was cancelled. It was also the second live-action show based on The Flash after the 1990 series, which previous actor John Wesley Shipp plays now Barry's father. The original series has been folded into the continued multiverse and hopes that other original characters will continue to show up as it continues. The Flash is by far my favourite super TV show and I can't wait to see more. So that was my top 10 superhero TV shows. If you're catching up on YouTube, then please like and subscribe to the video and the channel. Comments, queries, suggestions, you can follow me on Twitter, it's at Airtime Geek, or Instagram at Airtime of the Geek. You can email me, it's paulab@ignitionradio.co.uk. Don't forget to like the Facebook page, it's facebook.com/Airtime of the Geek, or you can call the studio, it's 01642 645 827. So I went with the bestie to see X-Men Apocalypse at the weekend, a movie which he has waited pretty much his whole life to see. Somewhat similar to me waiting my whole life to see Amazing Spider-Man. Without giving away any spoilers, I found it very enjoyable, but I understand why it's been getting a few less than favourable reviews. As a standalone film, it absolutely wouldn't work, but neither would Days of Future Past. It completely requires an interest and a passion for the other X-Men movies. Since I have a deep passion for the other movies, I really enjoyed it and I could have happily sat through another hour of material, but from an objectionable point of view, I could see parts that could have been trimmed for tighter storytelling purposes. If you really love your X-Men films, you're really going to enjoy it, but a more casual viewer might have trouble with connecting to some of the characters. There is a post-credits stinger to stick around for, but if you're not a huge Marvel brain box, then you may not get it. Put it this way, I am a huge Marvel brain box and I had to Google it to then go, okay. So, Game of Thrones Season 6, Episode 5, The Door aired last night, and we've reached the halfway point already of Game of Thrones. We're going to recap that, and this is your spoiler warning. Spoilers! I'm going to be talking about it now. We open with Sansa at the wall sewing. Someone brings her a letter which is marked with Littlefinger's seal. Sansa reads the letter and asks how far Molestown is. Littlefinger is waiting for her in one of the Molestown ruins. He greets her and Brienne, but neither look happy to see him. Littlefinger tries to gain Sansa's favour by saying how relieved he is she escaped. He tells her that he's ridden north with the Knights of the Vale to come to her aid. Sansa begins chewing him out about Ramsay, and it's glorious. Brienne even joins in. He admits he didn't know about Ramsay and apologises. Sansa threatens to cut his head off, but sadly it doesn't happen. Littlefinger tells Sansa that Blackfish Tully has an army gathered at Riverrun and he's retaken it from the Freys. Sansa makes it clear she does not want to see him again. We then go to Arya and the obnoxious girl training. Jaqen turns up and takes Arya to the room of lots of faces and tells her some of the history of the Faceless Men. He gives Arya a poison and tells her she is to go after an actress. This is her second chance. She will not be given a third. We go to the play, which is a reenacting of the death of Robert Baratheon, which Arya watches laughing when the actor playing Joffrey gets smacked in the face. But soon a parody of Ned and Sansa appear and Arya doesn't enjoy it as much. Backstage, the boy who played Joffrey is inspecting his dingle-dangle, and Arya gets taken for a prop girl, which allows her to blend in. And Richard E. Bloody Grant is part of the show, apparently. He's backstage fixing his wig, telling someone that there are no small parts. I wonder if that's the last we'll see of him. Arya spots her target and she goes back to Jaqen to tell him her plan. She wants to know who wants the actress dead, but it doesn't matter as the price has been paid and she is to die. It makes no difference to the many-faced god. We travel beyond the wall to Ming and Bran. They're walking again and come across a godswood tree surrounded by stones. The children of the forest run amongst them and they approach and see them having a meeting. The children have a man tied to a tree and a blade of dragon glass. They stab him with it, which transforms him into a White Walker. Bran wakes up and sees the children of the forest and confronts them. She tells them that they were at war, the godswoods were being cut down and they needed to defend themselves from men. Heading over to the Iron Islands, they gather for the King's Moot. Yara steps forward and makes a claim and a very good speech about the fact that the Iron Islands have a history of being a bit crap and having some poor follow-through. A rude man interrupts her though, pointing out that Theon is there, but Theon goes and stands by his sister, making quite a good speech himself that Yara is clearly appreciative of. Then Euron appears, the guy what did murder Balon, his brother. He mocks Theon for being a eunuch. Yara accuses him of killing Balon, and indeed he confesses it. Euron says that he's going to hitch his wagon to Dany's dragon train and aid the Targaryens in retaking the Iron Throne, which apparently convinces the crowd. Yara and Theon run to their ships while Euron is being baptised in the ocean, almost drowning in the process. When Euron comes round, he decides to murder his niece and nephew, but the two younger Greyjoys have already sailed away with all the ships of the Iron Islands. We now see Dany overlooking her new army of Dothraki with Jorah and Daario. Dany is still not happy with Jorah, but he shows her his greyscale and she is very upset that her loyal man is dying. Jorah confesses his love to Dany and then bids her farewell, but she tells him not to go without her permission. She tells him he must find the cure for greyscale, heal himself and return to her so that he can be by her side when she retakes the Iron Throne. Dany sets off with the Horde to return to Meereen, speaking of which, the Queen's Small Council is having a meeting. There's been peace for 2 weeks in the city, but Tyrion wants to run a good PR campaign for Dany. Cue the new Red Woman who we've been seeing in all the trailers. Kinvara, the new Red Priestess, is convinced that Dany is the prince who was promised and has been sent by the Lord of Light. She agrees to bring her priests to the city to spread the good word of Dany to the people. Varys, of course, can't help but show his scepticism since Stannis was promised all this before. Kinvara shows knowledge of what happened to Varys with the sorcerer who cut him, and even that a voice called out to him. Varys looks physically disturbed. The priestess departs and we go back to Bran inside the big tree. He's a bit bored and everyone's asleep. He throws a stone but Ming doesn't wake up. So he crawls to the roots of the weirwood and walks himself into the place they were before. The godswood with the tree. This time we see it above and it looks very much like the patterns that the White Walkers are making with body parts. Oh, and it's completely covered in snow. The tree is split in two and completely dead. Bran looks around and sees a huge army of the dead surrounding him. He walks through them and in between them as they stand still, not moving. When he makes his way to the edge, the Boss White Walkers are all chilling on their dead horses at the back. The Night's King looks at Bran. The army all turn round to face Bran, and the Night's King then grabs Bran's arm and he wakes up screaming. Bran has a grip mark on his arm, and Ming tells him that the Night's King will come for him and he can break into the tree now. Ming tells him that he isn't ready to be the new three-eyed raven, but he has to be. Bran wargs again, and we cut to Jon Snow overlooking a map. He knows that they need more men if they're to retake the north. Sansa tries to argue the loyalty of Northmen, but Davos counsels that they should start small and build their army. Sansa plays the Tully card, but doesn't tell Jon and Davos where the information came from. Sansa wants Brienne to go to seek the Tullys because she's the only one she trusts. Brienne doesn't want to leave Sansa though, and doesn't trust Davos or Melisandre, but Sansa does trust Jon. Jon and Sansa gather together. She gives Jon a gift of a new fur that she made herself that made to look like their father used to wear. Tormund Giantsbane gazes longingly at Brienne. Jon tells Ed not to knock down the castle while he's gone, and Ed says he'll do his best, and the Starks and their crew set off. Ed is somehow promoted to Lord Commander, and it's quite funny. Back in the tree, Ming and Bran are warged, and Mira talks to Hodor about going home, but notices their breaths have gone cold. Mira runs outside, and the children of the forest look on with her. The Night's King and his entire army are there waiting. The children tell her to get Bran and run, and Mira tries to wake Bran up. Bran is in a flashback, however, the same one he was at the start of the season, with the baby Ned and the baby Benjen. Mira grabs onto Bran's legs, tries to hoist him into the car, asking for Hodor's help, but Hodor just rocks and says Hodor a lot, while the children throw rocks at the dead army, which explode on contact. They make a barrier of fire, which the Skellies and the dead men can't cross, but the bosses can and do. The dead army, however, can walk around it, and they start climbing up the Godswood. Mira finally gets Bran on the cart, and in the flashback, Ned's father says goodbye to his son, and tells him if he has to fight, he should win. He's sending him off to the Vale. In the present, a skeleton breaks through the roots and Mira cuts it in half. More come to attack, and the children of the forest come to Mira's aid, fighting them off. Mira tries to wake Bran. They need Hodor. She tells him they need him to walk it Hodor now. Bran can hear this in the flashback. Ming tells him to listen to his friend, and Bran walks into Hodor to pick himself up and carry himself off. A few of the children are killed as the skeletons, but Mira throws a spear at them and does explode one of the boss ones. Summer stays behind and gets killed, leaving us now with only Ghost and Nymeria, who is technically alive as far as we know, but probably dead, so the entire wolf side quest is pointless. The Night's King enters the chamber where Ming is still trapped inside the tree roots and still warged. He bids farewell to Bran, and the Night's King kills him. The others try and escape. The last child of the forest stays behind, sacrificing herself and killing a lot of the pursuing dead army in the process, but not all. Hodor breaks open the door and drags Bran out. Mira shouts to him to hold the door. She picks up Bran on the cart and starts dragging him through the snow. Back in the past, Bran turns to look at Hodor, the young talking Hodor who looks like he can see Bran. And then his eyes were all white as if Bran is walking into him. And young Hodor collapses and starts having a fit, shouting, "Hold the door, hold the door, hold the door." In the present, Mira disappears into the snow, and Hodor keeps holding the door as the dead army start breaking through, stabbing him, scratching him, and killing him. Past Hodor chants change from hold the door to hold the door, hold the door, hold the door, Hodor, Hodor, Hodor. Ladies and gentlemen, we need a moment's silence for the gentle giant, Hodor. Last year, year of the Great 4 episode leak, I discussed with people the possibility that HBO could have leaked Game of Thrones itself due to the fact that the first 4 episodes were a little slow going and it only got going towards the end of episode 4. This season, the first 4 episodes were a little slow going and it only really got together during the ending of episode 4. Now I can't help but feel again it's gotten really good at episode 5, and there's not been some good moments, it's just we've had to dawdle through a lot of storylines that seem to be going nowhere to get where we are. Now we've reached the halfway point, I have some feelings on the season so far. Firstly is my death predictions. I predict that Sweet Robin Arryn, Ramsay Bolton, High Sparrow, Rickon Stark and perhaps Littlefinger will all bite it this season. Secondly, deaths. There have been a few deaths. Some carried more weight than others. For example, Bruce Bolton's death was shocking and unexpected. Osha, though a far more beloved character, was completely resigned by everyone, as she'd been gone for 3 seasons, and we all know Ramsay very well at this point, and most people said as soon as she saw the knife they knew she was going to die. Shaggy's dog's death annoyed the hell out of a lot of fans, and I suspect Summers will also see. Seemed at the beginning of the show that Giles was such an important symbol of the family, and now discounting Nymeria, only Ghost survives. King's Landing was missed this week, but not the High Sparrow. Highlights of this week's episode was everything involving Hodor and his sacrifice, though not Summers, as it doesn't seem so much as a sacrifice as the writers killing off another wolf. In fact, I can't really think of a low point for this episode, though it does seem that we're probably due to be bored to death by the High Sparrow and all the Sand Snakes at some point. Watch this space. At the end of this season, we're going to have a big group discussion on Airtime of the Geek. I'm going to have some special friends come in. We're going to discuss it as a whole, and that'll take place in about 6 weeks. You can send comment, query, suggestions to me if you follow me on Twitter. It's at Airtime of the Geek. Instagram is at Airtime of the Geek. You can email me. It's paulab@ignitionradio.co.uk. You can take a look at geeky art. I upload to DeviantArt. It's Airtime Geek. You can like the Facebook page, facebook.com/Airtime of the Geek. You can call the studio. It's 01642 645 827. That's everything for this week's episode of Airtime of the Geek. I'll be back next week, same time as usual.